The radical act of self preservation, how Black women's boundaries change everything. Good morning, and thank you for being here today. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of sitting down with Brenda Barnes, a revolutionary force who has fundamentally transformed how we conceptualize wellness for Black women in professional spaces. What Brenda has created isn't just a movement, it's a liberation philosophy that has empowered thousands of women to reclaim their time, their energy, and ultimately their very lives. Brenda's work sits at that critical intersection of racial justice, gender equity, and mental wellness. She has built bridges between communities that desperately needed connection, created language for experiences that went unnamed for generations, and most importantly, given Black women permission to prioritize themselves in a world that has always demanded their sacrifice. Her insights were so profound, so necessary, that I knew they needed to reach beyond our conversation and into this room today. What Brenda shared with me challenges one of our most deeply held cultural assumptions, and that assumption is this: that our value as Black women is measured by how much we can endure, how much we can give, and how little we need in return. We've been told a story, a powerful, persistent story that says strength means carrying everything without complaint, that says success means being available to everyone at all times, that says leadership means putting yourself last. But what if that story is wrong? What if, counter to everything we've been taught, our power actually comes not from how much we can bear, but from how clearly we can define what we will not bear? This is the radical idea I want to explore with you today: that boundaries aren't selfish barriers. They are, in fact, the foundation of sustainable success, authentic leadership, and genuine well being. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: boundaries in this economy, in this workplace, in this family. I hear you. The very suggestion can feel impossible, even dangerous. But that's precisely why we need to talk about it. For many Black women, particularly in professional and entrepreneurial spaces, we're conditioned to be the emotional backbone for everyone. At work, at home, and in our communities, we're expected to be the problem solvers, the mediators, the ones who make everything work while asking for nothing in return. We've internalized the message that our needs come last, that taking care of ourselves is a luxury we haven't earned, that saying no is an act of defiance rather than an act of self preservation. But here's what Brenda Barnes helped me understand: prioritizing our own needs isn't selfish, it's necessary for survival and success. Boundaries aren't just nice to have, they are the foundation of long term wellness. Let me share three key insights from our conversation that might forever change how you think about boundaries. First, setting boundaries is not an act of defiance, but one of self preservation. It allows us as Black professionals and entrepreneurs to sustain our energy, creativity, and leadership without burning out. Think about it this way: every time you say yes to something that depletes you, you're saying no to something that might fulfill you. Every time you extend yourself beyond your capacity, you're borrowing energy from your future self with interest. Second, guilt around boundary setting is often learned from societal expectations that position Black women as caretakers first. We've been taught that our value lies in how much we can give, how much we can endure. But this narrative wasn't created for our benefit. Rewriting these internal scripts empowers us not only personally, but also professionally. And third, perhaps most powerfully, when you claim your space unapologetically with clear boundaries, You inspire others in your industry or community to do the same. Your personal act of self care becomes a political act that challenges harmful norms and creates space for collective healing. Now, I know these ideas might sound good in theory, but you might be wondering, does this actually work in practice? Let me share some real world examples that Brenda discussed with me. Consider Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, founder of Therapy for Black Girls. When Dr. Joy first launched her platform, she was responding to a crisis she witnessed daily. Black women professionals arriving at their breaking points, their bodies and minds sending desperate signals that something had to change. One client, a marketing executive, came to Dr. Joy after collapsing at her desk during a presentation. For years, she'd been the first to arrive, last to leave, solving everyone's problems while neglecting her own health. She'd internalized the message that showing any vulnerability would cost her everything she'd worked for. Through Dr. Joy's culturally responsive approach, this woman learned to identify her non negotiables, sleep, therapy, and time with her children, and to communicate them clearly to her team. The result wasn't career suicide as she'd feared. Instead, her team's respect deepened, her creativity flourished, and most importantly, she stopped living in constant fear of falling apart. Dr. Joy didn't just help this woman, she built an entire ecosystem connecting thousands of Black women to therapists who understand their lived experiences. She created spaces where setting boundaries isn't seen as weakness but as wisdom, where asking for help isn't failure but courage. Then there's the transformative work happening at Willed by Wellness LLC. Their founder left a high powered corporate position after witnessing how the strong Black woman stereotype was literally killing her colleagues. One particular story haunts her: a brilliant VP who never took sick days, who handled everyone's emergencies, who was celebrated for her resilience right up until she suffered a stroke at 42. This wake up call inspired a coaching framework that specifically addresses the cultural and familial pressures that make boundary setting feel impossible for Black professional women. Their approach doesn't just teach women to say no, it helps them dismantle the belief systems that make yes feel like the only acceptable answer. One participant, a nonprofit director, described the transformation as learning to breathe again. After years of feeling responsible for every outcome, every emotion in her organization, she finally recognized that her constant availability wasn't serving anyone, not her team, not her mission, and certainly not herself. By establishing clear communication protocols and designated deep work times, she actually increased her impact while decreasing her stress. Her team became more self sufficient. Her funding proposals improved in quality. And for the first time in her career, she felt sustainable joy in her work rather than just temporary satisfaction followed by exhaustion. And then there's the entrepreneur therapy movement created by Jennifer Gray Counseling. Jennifer noticed a disturbing pattern among her high achieving clients in entertainment and media. Brilliant Black women who would reach unprecedented success only to sabotage it because they felt fundamentally unworthy or because the cost of maintaining it was destroying them. One client, a successful podcast host, came to Jennifer after having panic attacks before every recording. Despite her growing audience and critical acclaim, she felt like an imposter. Worse, she'd internalized the belief that her value came from constant productivity and availability to her audience. Through a combination of trauma informed therapy and practical business coaching, this woman established what Jennifer calls sacred containers, protected time and energy for creation, rest, and joy that no one, not even her most important clients, could violate. The result? Her content actually improved, her audience grew, and most importantly, she stopped seeing her work as something separate from her well being. The boundaries she established allowed her authentic voice to emerge more clearly than ever before. What's most striking about these examples is how they challenge our fundamental assumptions about success. They suggest that true achievement isn't measured by how much we can endure, but by how intentionally we can engage, not by how available we are to others, but by how present we are to ourselves. This brings me to a quote that Brenda shared during our conversation that stopped me in my tracks. She said, "The world will take as much as you're willing to give. Your boundaries are the only thing standing between you and complete depletion." Let that sink in for a moment. The world will take as much as you're willing to give. Your boundaries are the only thing standing between you and complete depletion. When I heard those words, I felt something shift inside me. I realized that I'd been measuring my worth by my capacity to give, to endure, to push through. And I wondered how many of you have been doing the same. But here's what's truly revolutionary about boundaries: they don't just protect us from others' demands, they protect us from our own internalized expectations. They give us permission to be human in a world that often expects us to be superhuman. And this is where the real transformation happens. Because when we set boundaries, we're not just saying no to external demands, we're saying yes to ourselves. We're declaring that our well being matters, that our dreams matter, that our joy matters. This isn't easy work. It requires us to confront deeply held beliefs about our value and our role in the world. It requires us to disappoint people who have grown accustomed to our unlimited availability. It requires us to sit with discomfort and resist the urge to rescue others at our own expense. But as Brenda reminded me, discomfort is the price of admission to a bigger life. So I leave you with this challenge. What would your life look like if you treated your boundaries as sacred? What would change if you believed, truly believed, that your well being is not just important, but essential? I challenge you to identify one boundary you need to establish or strengthen this week. One place where you've been saying yes when your mind, body, and spirit are screaming no. Write it down, speak it aloud, practice the words you'll use to communicate it. And remember that in doing so, you're not just changing your own life, you're creating a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. You're modeling for others, especially other Black women, what it looks like to value yourself in a world that often doesn't. Because a world where Black women can thrive rather than just survive, that's not just a personal revolution, it's a collective one. And it begins with three simple, radical words: "This is my boundary. Thank you."